Fishing like a local isn't just about catching fish. It's about connecting with the environment and the people who call it home. It's about hearing the stories and traditions that have been passed down for generations and sharing unforgettable moments with the people you meet along the way. Fishing like a local is having an experience that stays with you forever. And with Fishing Booker, you can experience it too, no matter where you are. Discover your next adventure on Fishing Booker.
I'm Erica Lynn, and we all know the ocean is the most demanding environment on Earth, consistently testing the reliability and durability of our equipment. When you spend as much time fishing as I do, you know that reliable gear is essential for staying on the water. This is why I went with the Abyss battery to power my trolling motor, electronics, and outboard. The guys at Abyss Battery are rattling the saltwater industry by manufacturing performance marine batteries specifically designed for sonar, outboards, trolling motors, and electronic fishing reels. They're also Bluetooth compatible, so I found checking battery statuses right on your phone while you're out on the water is a huge game changer. To learn more about why Abyss batteries are used by the pros and factory installed by premier boat builders, visit abyssbattery.com.
Hello and welcome to the Publicly Challenged Podcast. I'm your host, Luke Oswald, and I hope you join me on my quest for knowledge to become a better public land hunter, angler, and forager. Stick with this and who knows, maybe we will learn something together. All right, real quick before we get started on the show, I'm just going to talk about Treeline Academy. You've heard me say it. I can't even tell you how many times. Mark Livesay is treelineacademy.net. That's treelineacademy.net. Sign up. Use the promo code PC2020. Save yourself $20. Can't say it enough. It's awesome. Amazing. Most comprehensive e-scouting course out there. Check it out for yourself. Sign up. Use promo code PC2020. And now let's get to the show. All right, so we're sitting here and we're talking to Aaron Hepler. Aaron, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself for everybody listening?
Hey, man, thanks for having me on tonight. I'm Aaron Hepler. I born and raised Pennsylvania. Not really public land hunter my whole life, but it's something I've gained a passion for over the last 7 or 8 years now. Yeah. I'm a nurse by day and hunter any other time.
So I got to ask you, do you purposely work certain shifts so you can get more time to go bow hunting or do morning sits?
So this comes up on just about every podcast that I'm on, because nursing is probably, as far as scheduling goes, probably one of the best jobs you can have as a bow hunter. I do 3 12-hour shifts a week. It's considered full-time. I get the full-time pay, full-time benefits. And my wife is a nurse too. So we kind of she works as needed, so she can kind of make her schedule. So we have somebody to put our daughter on and off the bus. It's great.
Nice. So it just brings something to my mind that I thought of, and apparently I made the mistake of telling my wife, but I said, a single guy that would be a nurse, he could really clean house, And
Sure.
She goes, "Oh, have you thought about that much?" And I go, "No, it just popped in my head as we're walking along here in the hospital together." And it was a mistake. Shouldn't have said it, apparently, but
yeah,
I don't know. It's probably true, and that's probably how you met your wife, right?
Close. We lived in the same apartment complex, and she was actually getting ready to go to nursing school. Long story short, we hadn't seen each other for a couple of years and ran into each other and just kind of hit it off from there. So
nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
So, public land hunting, I talked to you a little bit earlier before we started the podcast, and you were kind of telling me, you've been bow hunting, or hunting at least, a very long time, but up until recently, a few years ago, same as me, that was the first buck I ever killed on public land. So can we kind of talk about that and how that came about, why you chose to do that, and kind of the struggle or the learning curve along the way?
Yeah. So I've bow hunted for 22 years. Um, I grew up in a hunting family, but most of my life we hunted either small private parcels, or I did have permission on I still have permission on a really good friend of mine on his farm. And I spent most of my time hunting with their family and my family, like I said, 5 to 7 acre parcels, and just really learning a lot that way. I mean, I don't think it matters where you're learning about deer. They'll be different, but they all have the same things that you have to start out with: learning the sign, learning some deer body language, learning just how to see them in the woods. Um, so I spent up until, like I said, 7 or 8 years ago, I read some articles by Tony Peterson, and Dan Infalt, of course. Everybody loves the Dan Infalt stuff, and the Beast. So learned a little bit about hunting beds, and learned about, maybe there is some. Everybody says there's no big bucks in Pennsylvania, and there's no bucks to be had, and we've had an antler point restriction for quite a while, and it's made a difference, like 100%. So, a buddy and I sent some of these things to a buddy of mine, and we're always like, I don't know, we should try that. We should try that. And one year we just started scouting and hunting, and it was kind of all trial and error from there. And one year we kind of just, things started to click a little bit. Like, let's go check out this clear cut. Let's go check out this swampy area. Let's go check out, this different terrain. And we got a handful of good looking spots. And I remember one day, it was the end of October. We had, I think, a 15-degree drop in temperature, and we are like, let's go to that spot tomorrow. We're going to kill one there. And, you always have that enthusiasm when you go out on a hunt, and then that goes away so fast. And I remember like sitting in the tree, and he's seeing a couple bucks and I'm not seeing anything. And the enthusiasm started to go away. And then a buck grunted, and that buck came in, and we can talk about that story. I don't have to tell you the whole story here, but like,
tell me the story. I want to hear it.
You want to hear it?
Yeah.
So it was a cool morning, man. We got in clean. It was a clear cut. He went out onto the end of a ridge point that the clear cut butted up to, and like I said, he was texting me, "Oh, just had a 6-pointer at 15 yards. Oh, just busted a big 8-pointer, busted me." And I hadn't really seen anything. And what happened to me in the morning is I had a Hawk helium set at the time, and I got in clean and whatever. But as soon as I sat down, 10 minutes later, it was already getting light. And I remember something started running circles around my tree. Like, I was in a real tight area. I could only see 15 yards. And I don't know what it was. I think it was probably a doe, but it was running circles around this water hole and this little opening I was in. And then it just left. And I was like, well, that was weird. And I thought maybe a doe, I don't know what the deal was. But then I heard something big coming, and I'm like, oh, it's time. I got my release on and got all knocked on, got stood up, got ready to go. And I'm thinking this giant buck's coming through the bushes, and I'm watching the laurel bushes shake, and I'm like, oh man, here it comes. And a bear steps out from behind this laurel bush. And I'm like, oh, well, that wasn't what I was hoping for. Cool, bear. And I was thinking, oh, I'm going to get my phone out and take a picture. Well, I'm sitting with it in a tree that's roots touch a water hole, and the bear is drinking out of this water hole. And so he's all of, like, I could spit on him, and he goes around the edge of the water hole, and I'm like getting my phone out to take a picture, and he's walking towards my tree, like even closer to my tree. And I'm like, well, maybe that's not a good idea. And he put his paw on my tree, and he put the other paw on my tree. And I'm like, don't you dare even. And I kind of just, and he looked up at me, and he barked, and he ran. I was like, oh man, just almost had some company. So I'm thinking, I'm probably not going to see any deer. He stanked the area up or whatever. And that's kind of when I got to that low point, in your hunt, where you're all enthusiastic, and then it's kind of like, oh, well, It's nice. It's a great spot. Looks nice. I like it. Well, the reason I went there is because, like I said, we had seen some on the private areas we had, or just even watching deer in fields at night. We had seen, that some bucks were starting to chase those a little bit. Well, with that temperature shift, I think it was October 22nd. I shouldn't say I think. I know I'm kind of a nerd like that. I know it was October 22nd. I thought, this would be a good time for bucks to start, kind of just checking things out a little bit. So the reason I sat there is because it's still kind of warm. Like it was, going to be a high of 50s, but the morning was, I think, in the low 30s. And the day before, the low was like almost 50. So it was, pretty big drop in temperature. And I was like, well, this is the only place that bucks can get water in this area. And this is a really good place to chase does. I know there's a lot of does here. We know that. So I kind of figured, at some point they're going to come through here. So we get to about 8:30 in the morning. I hear a buck grunt, and I grunt back at it, and it comes, not charging, but it's coming pretty quick down the hill. And I could see it would stop every now and then. I'd see the tree sway because it was rubbing. And I remember watching this buck coming through the bushes, and he's twisting his head to get through, the saplings and the clear cut I was sitting in. And he stopped behind a laurel bush for 45 minutes and was chewing his cud and just scratching his back with his antlers. And really, it was, so the cool thing for this story was it was the biggest buck I had ever been close to while hunting. And it's windy. I'm cold because my hands are all like, I was getting ready to shoot, and I'm thinking, he's coming pretty quick. Well, he stood behind that laurel bush for 45 minutes and finally would take like a step at a time. And finally he took a couple more steps, and I was able to get my bow drawn, and I shot him at 12 yards. I double lunged him at 12 yards in this cut. And I think he ran maybe 40 or 50 yards. And, I text my buddy. I'm like, I just shot a 10-pointer. I just shot a 10, and that neither of us had shot a buck that big at the time. And like I said, that was my first buck with a bow after 22 years of bow hunting. And it was my first public land deer. And it was just a really, really awesome moment. So we ended up quartering the deer out, and we're planning to pack it out. And we thought that, we were going to try a bunch of different things to see what worked. Because we never did it before, but we did the gutless method thing. Got everything. It went great. The quartering went great. Put it in our game bags, and I bought one of those like pack out vests. You ever see those? Looks like a small game vest. It looks like a small game vest with a big pocket in the front and a big pocket in the back.
Sounds horrible.
Horrible idea. Because all the weight's directly on your shoulders, and it just flops around. It's terrible. So I put that thing on, and our idea was, I'll carry the deer and you carry all the gear. So he tried to put 2 tree stands and all our clothes in his pack. And I put the deer in this carry vest, and we made it, not even 100 yards. And I was like, I can't do this, dude. We got 3 miles to walk. And he's like, yeah, I don't think I can do it either. So we stored the meat. We're going to bring our gear back, get our packs, and go back out and get it. So we got to the parking lot, and a game commission officer met us there. And he was like, check your licenses. And he was like, you guys seeing anything? And I was like, well, I shot a 10-pointer. And he was like, really? Where's it at? And I was like, well, I got to go back and get it. He was like, oh, I'll drive you back. So our pack out misfortune was somebody was looking down, because he drove me back and picked the deer up and picked the quarters up, and he thought it was cool that we went back there and did it that way. He's like, you guys are doing it right. I don't mind helping people out when they're doing it right. So
Wow, good story. I did not see it taking a turn that way. Normally, you hear about the negative experiences. It's good to hear a positive one like that. Normally, the guy's going to be a jerk and be like, "Oh, did you leave evidence of this on it? Did you do that?" You know, or at least here around here, it seems that way. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, me and my buddies, we try our best to always. I mean, if I break a rule, it was by accident, you know, like something I really didn't mean to do. And actually keep in contact with that officer pretty often since then. You know, we share pictures back and forth, or, you know, hey, how's it? Because he hunts a lot with his kids and stuff. So it's kind of nice, nice knowing those guys.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I like to hear
but then
that.
Yeah. It's kind of weird because whenever I run into any of the local ones that don't know me, they're like, "Oh, do you know this guy?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Oh, he told me about you and you did this and that." And I'm like, "Yep."
Cool.
So,
that's awesome,
yeah.
man. So
It's
that's
fun.
a pretty cool first
good
buck
guys.
experience, you know? I mean, the first public land buck, I should say. And,
Right. Yeah. I had shot a bunch with my gun up to that point. On my buddy's farm, I had shot quite a few, but that was my first bow buck.
That's awesome. So
Yeah.
my first bow buck wasn't on public land, but my first public land buck was pretty cool. And I think he's probably he's the biggest out of all the bucks I've ever shot, you know. I mean, and he's nothing special or spectacular, but to me, you know, it's all that matters. It's a nice
absolutely.
buck to me. It's the one right there. But
oh, nice.
Yeah. So, you know, I mean, no big deal there, but that's awesome. Awesome experience. Cool that you like made a friend out of the deal, you know, a new friend, and share that information, and that, you know, it was a positive experience. And I mean, it sounds like a memory that's kind of etched and burned into your mind for a lifetime. And that's kind of, you know, how my first public land experience like that was too. And last year I kind of got hung up though, and I wanted to chase one deer and hung a bunch of cameras and took a totally different approach than normal. And instead of like hunting the sign, right, I decided to just hunt the buck and try and predict his pattern and do all that kind of stuff. And I feel like I actually missed the opportunity that I probably should have if I would have paid closer attention to the actual rut and things that were going on and the activity and the sign that was there already and the way they were hitting the scrapes and tearing them up and stuff. And I kind of regret that now, you know, rather than just hunting the sign and playing the area and seeing what's going to come into me. I didn't do that. And I feel like I jilted myself. So
yeah, I mean, that's a hard toss. That first buck, I didn't own a trail camera when I shot that deer.
Right.
Now I own probably more than I should. I don't know, I have like 30 cameras out right now, I think, and that's a lot of work. I think that's my limit.
Aren't they all cell cams though? I mean, come on, Chad can't hook you up.
Yeah. There's a good portion of them are cell cams because Chad's a good guy. He takes care of me.
That's good.
But no, you know, I kind of did the same thing you were talking about last year. Is I did kind of the same thing. I picked a couple bucks that I really liked, and a buddy of mine, a different. I mean, I hunt with all kinds of people. I'm kind of a butterfly, you know.
That's all right.
Public land does it to you, man. Because I'll tell you that story in a little bit. But we found an area that we really liked, and we hung a couple cameras. I think we only ran 10 cameras in that area last year. And, you know, we both had maybe 2 or 3 bucks made a list. There was 5 or 6 that we liked total. And we ended up hunting the end of October last year together. And I killed one of them. And that was cool. But, you know, then you get in that mentality, well, if you do it once, you can do it again. Sometimes you get so glued into that one buck and it takes a lot of the fun out of it, like you're kind of alluding to. And although it's like a different kind of fun, if you do it too hard and too much and don't go do something else once in a while, like, go to a different spot where he's not going to be at all, like different county. You got to do that just to like give yourself a little bit of break from that, because otherwise you kind of lose the, reading the sign and figuring this out and figuring that out. You're so honed in that sometimes I think sometimes you miss things that he might be doing, and you might have thought of it if you went to do something else and just took your mind off of it for a little while.
Yeah, I mean, I did a little bit. Like I went, had an invite to a buddy's property, took a doe, and then took another doe on a different piece of public land during gun season.
Right.
So I mean, I took deer. It just wasn't the same as just trying to, little bit early, like a pre-rut, catching them running the scrapes or something like that, where they're
Right.
cruising and doing that. I was just fixated on that one. And especially when a trail camera tells you every other day he's coming through at 1:30 or 2:30 in the afternoon, it's like, oh, I need to be there,
Yeah.
So this year, no cameras whatsoever. Just going to hunt the moment, hunt the hot sign, and see what happens. So
yeah. There's a good mix of things to do with the cameras and without the cameras.
Yeah. Plus, I feel like I've got, and that's the other thing too. Maybe it's just the cameras. I'm gonna come out and say I don't have Exoduses, but there's been times where I know that buck passed by because he was at, whatever 60 yards, and there should have been a camera and was a camera there, but there's no pictures of him, and yet I saw him when I was in the tree stand. So,
yeah,
I mean, I don't know. But so let's kind of talk about like with the upcoming rut and all that kind of stuff. What are some tactics you're utilizing for, public ground right now, and kind of strategizing to go forth and kill something in the rut?
Yeah, man. So right now, I would say that I'm really focused on what the weather app that I use is like a 15-day forecast, and that's a little excessive, but it's good to watch the trends, because then you can kind of pick up when one is actually going to be a cold front and when one's not going to be a cold front. Like everybody talks about, it's pretty obvious, like cold days are the best days, right? But just really watching the weather trends, and if you are using cameras, what the preferred movement wind is. Like right now I'm getting a lot of bucks on like some kind of north wind, like most of the time like a northwest wind is their favorite, and they tend to come out a little later if it's from the south, and that's probably because maybe the temperatures are a little bit warmer when it's a southwest wind or versus northwest. But it seems that they're moving a little better right now on that type of thing. So I'm looking at that coming into the rut, and scrape week is coming up. So scrapes are huge. Most of the scrapes that I run cameras on or I've hunted really start to pick up around the 14th or 15th of October. I'll start getting during shooting light pictures, where I could actually get into a stand and be there when that buck gets there, or beat into that area. So the scrapes are coming up in my strategy quite a bit.
Yeah, that's kind of my plan earlier. And here's what's weird, like last year too, I think they actually rutted, or at least by me, they rutted earlier than everybody was thinking. I think it actually happened, and I was thinking it was activity, like scrape activity and running around, but the running that was happening, I believe, was actually an earlier rut, which was kind of weird, like the end of October type rut versus like the first or second week of November, like it typically is. I mean, it all signs pointed towards that, and I didn't really pay that much attention to it.
Yeah, I don't, October is my favorite time the rut is a great time. The first week in November, if you're out then, you're very likely going to have some very good sits and have a really good chance at some good encounters. And I think that's why people get so keyed into taking their vacation time. Now, normally I have a lot of vacation time in November, but it's because I took a whole bunch of time off to go elk hunting at the beginning of the month. So But normally my vacation would start now and I'd have off for the next 2 weeks because I just that mid-October to end of October timeframe is the time that I've seen the best, the most consistent activity, the most comfortable bucks. And it's still, if you are targeting a specific buck, it's a really good time to hone in on that because he hasn't like moved into an area where he hasn't been led away by a doe just yet.
Yeah, he's still cruising, checking, especially those scrapes like we're talking about. I mean,
Yeah,
that's what 100%. I find.
100%.
They're really cruising. And I had him predicted to the point to where he would, it was almost every other day exact, and he was cruising through and he'd hit them, within a 3-hour window. So, that's pretty consistent. Yeah. The problem is getting on them with the right wind and being able to utilize that. Just didn't really always pan out the way I wanted to. So,
right.
So what's the weather app you're using that you're using a 15-day forecast?
I just use the AccuWeather app, and it actually, for my area, it's actually I don't want to jinx it, but it's actually usually pretty accurate, surprisingly.
Yeah, no, that's pretty good. I use AccuWeather, and sometimes I'll plug into some other stuff, and then I utilize on Basemap itself on the app. They've got where I don't even know where it actually pulls the weather from, but that's pretty accurate too. And then the cool part is I'll look at the 5-day wind stuff that shows up on there, and then I'll use the slider and do like the 24-hour to see how it's going to shift, and then I can try and, at least in my head, plan and strategize for where I'm going to set up or try and ambush if I know the area well enough.
I do that. I forget what website I look at some historical wind patterns. I don't, if it's like a USGS thing, I don't remember what website it is. You just have to Google it. But I will look at like historical wind patterns too. Like if I'm planning, like, this is kind of what I should focus on for earlier part of the season and what's the predominant wind at that time. Because it'll give you percentages, like it'll give you a circle with different bars that tell you that a percentage of wind direction for that particular area. But for example, next week we have like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are going to be in the low 30s in the morning. And I think Sunday will be, the low is like 40 something, 45, I think. So Monday and Tuesday are going to have some light rain into the morning and then kind of break into just clouds and sun. So kind of post-frontal conditions. And that's a really good time to be hunting scrapes because, the bucks come out and they freshen them. After a light rain like that, they want to check them out, get them stanky again and stuff,
I never thought about that for actually utilizing, the rain to try and catch a buck on them. That's actually something I've never even thought of, that's when they freshen them up.
Yeah, I've seen it a few times. So a couple of years ago, I got on a scrape like that and had a 120-ish 8-pointer come in, and he ended up busting me because I left my frame pack on the ground, and my frame pack still had a tag, like a factory tag on it, and it was blowing in the wind, and it did one of these, and he spooked. But that was a day he was actually coming to check he was actually freshening up scrapes, and he was out late because of it, right? I think it was October 16th, and it was a colder morning because of the rain, and he was, I would have thought, I think it was 10:30 in the morning. So I would have thought that deer would be bedding at that point in time, but I think he was just taking his time checking all these scrapes that he had. It was a pretty good scrape line, and he came to freshen a scrape and busted me while I was at full draw. So that was a heartbreaker. But.
Yeah, for sure. So do you do an all-day sit in October, or is it more of a kind of hunt the whole day but get down, move? What are you doing?
If I'm hunting a whole day, usually I move spots. That particular day, I think the plan was to sit until 12:30, just because it was colder like that. And the guy that I was hunting with that day was seeing does and smaller bucks all morning. Like they were just moving constantly.
Sometimes those are fun mornings.
They are fun mornings. No, I didn't see anything except for that buck. So I almost fell out of my stand when I saw him coming. You know? you don't really expect that, but that's one thing about those bigger bucks is like a lot of times where they're living, you're not going to see a whole lot of other deer. There's a reason they live there, and it's because they don't want to be found. So an easy way for them to get found is a whole lot of sign. And I'm not saying deer know the difference of like, oh, there's a lot of signs, so a hunter can find me here. But it's probably more like people see that area, people find the sign, people frequent the sign, big buck stays away from the sign. So, but yeah, those are fun mornings like that. So
yeah. I just like, if I don't kill a deer, that's fine. Obviously, if you're hunting a bigger deer, you're not going to, like you said, you're not going to see that much, but sometimes just having that activity, knowing that the deer are there and you're watching them and could take them, but you don't, it's satisfying. It's like it ignites that predator instinct in you, and like, haha, I didn't get busted and there was 12 of them.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
it helps like reinforce your fundamentals anyway, that like, okay, I know I was high enough, or I was camouflaged enough in the tree, or, with whatever, that they looked right up and never saw me, or, the wind is blowing in just the right direction and my entry and exit was good, all those things. So I like doing that for sure. Like your plan, pretty much scrapes, you doing anything to these scrapes? Are you freshening them up, putting anything in them, or peeing in them?
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll pee in them. Usually when I hang the cameras, but these are pretty well established. So I do like I do a lot of like this postseason. I think I hiked 180 something odd miles during the spring, and I always do my best to find 2 or 3 scrape lines. And when you find those licking branches that have just their oiled up ends, and you can tell they're just kind of weathered over years, those are the really good ones. It's really not about the scrape. It's almost more about the licking branch. So no, I'll find ones that I think have a lot of other historical sign around them, maybe older rubs. And like I said, like a just tattered licking branch, and trying really taking an educated guess on, hey, this is a pretty annual scrape line. So you don't really have to doctor those up too much. You might get some more summertime activity if you put some nice orbital stuff on the licking branch, and pee in the scrape or whatever. But I don't really care about attracting the deer. I want to know what the deer is going to do when it's just doing its own thing. So that's kind of how I'll kick them open a little bit here and there, because I think they like the smell of that fresh earth or whatever. But no, normally I'm kind of just going all natural when it comes to the scrape line thing.
Sometimes in my head, and I don't know if it's true or not, but like, say you put in, 3 deer, buck urine or something like that, a synthetic in there, so it lasts a real long time. But, then that buck's like, who's this? Somebody else is coming in my scrape? I don't know this guy. And in my mind, it makes me think that buck is going to come there more often, or check on it and try and catch this other buck. Probably not true, but that's how it plays out in my mind.
As far as scent control,
on average, it takes about 30 days for a person to break their New Year's resolution. So if saving money was on your 2024 list, your odds aren't really looking that great. Luckily, I have a 100% guaranteed way to save you money this year. Just switch to Mint Mobile right now. Mint Mobile has wireless plans starting at just $15 a month. That's unlimited talk, text, and data for $15 a month. If you save as much as I think you're going to, you are going to be able to afford a brand new rod and reel. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone number along with all of your existing contacts. To get your new wireless plan for $15 a month and get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/waypoint. That's mintmobile.com/waypoint. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/waypoint. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details.
want to succeed. You want to fish. You want to be one of the greatest.
Tune in to West Marine's Life on the Water, presented by Costa Custom Boats, every Saturday night from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern on Waypoint TV.
And using different things, I think it's really what all makes you confident. Like, it's probably more superstition, but I like to carry a bottle of not a bottle, but like an aerosol can of dead downwind. And when I get up in my tree, I spray myself off a little bit and then spray it the way the wind's blowing. I don't know why. I don't think it does anything. I just think it makes me feel good.
Right. Do you actually like have a scent control routine that you utilize pretty religiously, or is it?
No, I wash my clothes and sometimes I just use Arm & Hammer, if I'm going to be completely honest. Whatever is unscented.
Yep, that's what I do.
And then I have an ozone closet. Half the reason I have it is because you don't have to wash your clothes as much. Because honestly, like, it's supposed to kill bacteria and it takes away the nasty smells out of the clothes. So it does give your camouflage a little bit more life. So it's kind of nice.
So what kind of nasty smells do you get in your clothes? Because I'll even wear, because I'll wear merino, and for like my base layers and stuff. And I'm gonna be honest, I wash them maybe twice the whole season.
Yeah. So anything that's synthetic gets I stank it up real bad. Like I said, I was elk hunting 2 weeks ago, and I debated on throwing a couple things out.
You did drop a nice elk, by the way.
I did. Thank you.
Congrats on that. That's pretty cool.
Thank you.
But yeah, so that's like kind of why I got away from the whole synthetic thing, especially for, underwear or base layer. I don't do it anymore. And I found that, even if it does have a little funk, like I'll hang it up in my little area, or I will put it in like a bag or a tub, Rubbermaid tub, and the scent completely goes away after like, I don't know, 8-10 hours. It's gone. Yeah, merino, I don't know what it does, but it works pretty well.
The merino is cool stuff. But like I said, the ozone closet for me is just, I don't know. It was a gift, so that was nice. But it's a good place to store it. It's a good place to try to, I'll run that every now and then during the off season and get some like musty smells out and stuff like that too. So
yeah.
And it honestly too, it's like I put my boots in there. It's good for your boots, whatever, that kind of thing too.
I see you rolling with the Crispies. So
I just bought them and they're amazing. I probably would have broke my neck a few times.
I have gone through about 6 different pairs of boots, and I know everybody's foot is different, so it doesn't really make sense that everybody can wear a pair of Crispies and they're the greatest boots in the world. But I will say, like Zamberlin's, wanted to wear them, too tight, too narrow. I've got like a wide toes and a real narrow heel, and for me, Crispies out of the box, pulled them, put them on, 0 break-in, awesome boots. It's like my 2nd season wearing them now, plus like a summertime of hiking and scouting and stuff.
Yeah.
Just freaking awesome. Plus, like I'll just wear boot covers. I wear those all season long, and a merino sock. And really until the temps dip, into the like low teens. I don't even wear a thick merino sock. I wear like a real light merino sock, and then just put a boot cover over it. And man, those will keep you through most of the season.
Yeah, so this is my first season with them, but I'll 100% agree with you because I bought them and wore them for a mile-long hike before I went elk hunting with them. So, in my opinion, 0 break-in needed for them. I don't know. Normally, I just wear whatever. Like, I usually wear like Keens or whatever's on sale. And actually, like Keens work fine. Like they're nice in the saddle. It's better than a pair of rubber boots by a long shot.
Yeah,
Doesn't matter what kind of rubber boots you're wearing.
Climbing sticks and rubber boots do not get along, especially when it's wet. I've learned that the hard way. And honestly, rubber boots don't breathe enough for me. And I found that they just make my foot cold. And I don't care. And then, so then you say you've got X amount of insulation in them. Oh, I've got 2,500 grams of
It doesn't matter.
insulation. Well, now your foot's going to be sweating the whole way you walk in. That
Yep.
rubber's trapping it into that insulation, and now you've got a freezing cold foot anyway. So, yeah. To me, the lightest, weight that I can get away with, and then just put a cover over it, and then those, like, I hate to admit it because they're not made in America, but those Arctic Shield boot covers, they're freaking great.
I haven't used them, and I haven't used this tip, but I'm going to share this tip because you probably already heard it. But
wool sock.
The Byron Horton wool sock thing.
Yeah.
Do you know? So Cameron from Exodus, Cameron Durr, he's their gear guy. Like, he knows everybody's things and what they use, and different packs and sticks and all that stuff. And he's a swear by the put a wool sock over the toe box thing.
And I agree with that 100%. And not even just like, so you put it over the toe box or whatever. If you got big enough ones, you could put it over most of your boot. Because, I mean, eventually that arch is going to get cold too. Not as much, but it'll get cold, especially when that stand is there. And at that point, you might as well switch it over to a boot cover, I feel like. But like this time of year, even when you dip down into like the 20s, or it's, teens in the morning and 20s later on, after an hour or two of sunlight, I think that's perfect. The wool sock.
Well, they also, like you buy those, the toe warmers, but if you put those in your boots, they don't breathe. Well, they need to breathe to,
so
they need to breathe to work.
Real cold temps, when you're getting like sub-zero temps and stuff, I'll throw just hand warmers, regular hand warmers in those boot covers. And then it's still an uninsulated boot that I'm wearing, and my feet are toasty. They're not hot enough. They're sweating, but they're warm for an all day. Well, I shouldn't say an all day sit. I'd say probably 8 of the 10 hours you're there, you're pretty warm. Yeah. And by the time the evening darkness starts creeping in, and the sun's setting, that's when you're like, oh man, my toes are cold again. But they weren't cold the rest of the day, so it's not too bad.
Right.
For sure.
The other thing, like I said, they just slip in hand warmers underneath the sock instead of using the toe warmers. So, and apparently that works pretty well.
Yeah, that's I use the hand warmers. I'd throw them in the covers, but I've dropped them once and and debated whether or not I should climb down and get them. That's one of the things. It's like, oh man, I only brought one hand warmer, for my boot. But no, that's definitely the way to go, is doing that with the lighter boot for sure. What about packs? What are they like? What are you hearing? I utilize a full frame pack and will never go back.
Yeah, I use a QU. I did use an 1850, but when you're packing out an animal, it's a little bit tough with the small pack like that. So I just bought the 1800 bag for the frame system that they have. My other buddy that I hunt with, if I wasn't already invested in QU, I'd probably switch to, I really like that. He has a QFARU pack.
Initial ascent.
Yeah, yes. It's pretty set up for whitetails with that meat shelf and stuff. If that's what you're doing, if that's what you're doing with your deer, is packing it out, that's kind of the way to go. But really, like, as far as the room in the pack goes, it's really to pack my clothes in and, pack them back out or whatever. I don't wear my saddle in just because I want to get all ripped up and all the stuff I walk through. So it's usually inside my pack.
I put that right in the top of the pack. As soon as I take the pack off, saddle goes out of the pack, put it on. And then a little bit towards the end of last year, I actually designed a product that goes on my climbing sticks and utilized it to where I took them off and just strapped them into the molly webbing on my pack. And then I can climb up and just reach back, because I don't like stuff on the saddle. I find that, like, it just makes it sag while you're trying to climb, and then everything's, the alignment belt, and I just don't like it. So I eliminated that, and then created a clip that goes on the actual platform too. So now I can clip that on my kidney belt, my pack, and then everything else is like right behind me to where I can just reach back, pull that off, and just stick them on the tree as I'm doing that. So that like it changed things. It made it a lot easier.
You know what I was gonna do this year was I was going to attempt the one sticking thing, because the one guy I hunt with, it's just he's a wizard at it, man. He can go up that tree in 2 minutes. But I got all the stuff for it, and I just didn't get to practice. For me, I like to practice getting in and out. I don't like to go in the dark and try to be guessing things, you know. I also don't want to fall on my ass, and so so I'm usually trying to practice that thing, and I tried it maybe 2 or 3 times, and I'll probably I'm going to keep working at it. I have the stuff to do it. So I modified one of my sticks. I cut it down. I cut it like half. I use hawk sticks just because I haven't upgraded. So
yeah, no, I know that feeling. I did them for 2 seasons, and then finally I broke down and I got myself some Timber Ninjas, and that was like the coolest thing in the world that I've ever done. So
right, and like, you know, the elk hunt I went on, we had been planning that for 2 years because we had to buy points and this and that. So like, it's kind of, you know, just buying stuff up for that. So you kind of chew your budget up, and it's like, well, I already have sticks, so I don't really need to buy new sticks yet. So, but actually I have the old version of hawk stick. So I had put on a Lone Wolf, the Versa button on them a while back, and I used that Versa strap from Tethered, which is horrible because the straps, it's great concept, but the straps just get like the flatness of them, they just twist together, and your always fingers are cold, and you can't separate them to open the loop. It's a pain in the butt. So I got Amsteel daisy chains, which are great because they just slip right over that thing. They're awesome.
So I got to tell you, if you like the daisy chain for the Amsteel, even better, I'll one up you. Amsteel Sam, the Amsteel guy, he makes the USA attachment. So it's got a Prusik on one end, and then it's got a loop on the other end. So you put the loop on your Versa button, put the Prusik on, and then you can reef it tight, and then just set your stick, and it's done.
Oh, that's nice.
Oh,
that's almost so like a
sweet.
buckle.
That's like
cool.
But it's quiet, right? And lightweight, and just it's amazing. That's what I've been rolling with, and dude, I'll
even taking
never
off,
go back.
Yeah, I mean, even taking off the buckles off your sticks is 3 of those buckles weigh a little over a pound, and it makes a difference once you start taking a pound here and there off.
I still use the buckle only for my platform, but I use
the buckle for my platform as well.
But I use a buckle cover on it, and that was a game changer. So it's a 3D printed little buckle cover that goes on it, slides over it by
like the
DIY.
rubber,
DIY 3D print, or DIY bow hunting, the 3D printing that he does. And dude, that thing, it's awesome because now it doesn't clang around. So that's pretty cool too.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah. So I did that, but then when I modified the stick that I was going to use for one sticking, I cut that old hawk stick in half because those are 32-inch sticks. So I cut that thing in half, and I put a cam cleat on it, and I made my own Amsteel rope to go around that, and that I put a little 2-step aider on it, and that worked kind of nice. I'm probably going to actually just do that to the other sticks and just use, because normally I use 3 sticks. I'm not Stretch Armstrong when I'm going up the tree, so I got short legs, you know. I'm 6 feet tall, but I got little legs.
I'm all torso.
Yeah. So I probably will end up cutting the other 2 down because I really like how that one fits in the pack, and I like the aider. It's easy to climb with. Once you get used to it, you know, you have to keep your toe against the tree or whatever, you go flying out the side of the tree. But I usually use that as my first stick, and then I'm up 2 other sticks after that. But I forget where we're going with that. Oh, so the guy
The one
that I
sticking.
yeah, the one sticking guy, he's a wizard. So I was going to try that, but again, didn't really get to practice that. But you know, I don't want to get too far off topic because we're kind of on a roll, but that dude has taught me a lot about hunting. And I told you how we kind of found an area that we liked, and we hung a bunch of cameras there last year, and that's how I killed my buck last year. But the one cool thing that I will say as a random note on public land is I met that guy on that piece of public land where we were hunting those bucks 2 years ago, and we're like very good buddies, you know.
So tell me
And
that story. I got to hear that.
uh, so I guess I think we probably followed each other on Instagram, and I remember seeing pictures of his bike on Instagram and being like, "Oh boy, this guy's." And he was posting pictures of the maps of the places he was hunting, and I'm like, "Dude, what are you doing?" You know. And I remember he posted a YouTube video of this buck, and I'm like, "Don't do that, don't do that," you know. And the map of where it was and everything. I'm like, "What?" And he messaged me a question or something on Instagram, and you know, ended by saying like, "Oh, maybe we'll run into each other someday." And 3 days later, I'm out shed hunting on a Saturday and found a couple nice sheds, and found ultimately the stuff that um, I found the spot that I killed my buck in last year at that. I think it was March, end of March or April, early April. And I'm riding my bike out, and I see his bike, and I'm like, "Oh, I guess that guy hunts here." So I'm riding my bike out, and next thing you know, I hear this guy zooming up behind me, and he's like, hey, how's it going?" I'm like, "Oh, hey, we're in the midst of COVID. We're all, you know, where everybody was like, I don't know what this stuff is, you know." And I told you I'm a nurse, so I'm not. That doesn't really bug me all that much, and it obviously didn't bug him. So I was like, all right, well, chat with this guy on the way out. So we're like, you know, swapping stuff, and I'm like, "Well, I didn't tell him about the sheds in my backpack. I can't tell him all that." He's like, "Did you find any?" And I was like, you know, I found one
Yeah.
that was okay, you know." He's like, "Oh, I just found this little one." He had like a little one on his backpack, and we're, you know, trading stories, and we rode out. I don't know, 2.5, 3 miles. I don't know what it was. We talked the whole way. We got back to the trucks, and we were talking for another half hour or so. And we're like, "Well, should exchange numbers and whatever." And he was like, "So you really didn't find any sheds out there?" And I was like, "All right, well, we've been talking for." I found three, and I like brought them out, and they were nice. They were like 52-inch, couple 52-inch sheds. And he's like, "Oh man, you know, where'd you find those?" And we ended up sharing our track, and I don't know how we didn't run into each other in the woods, because we were only like 50 yards apart almost the entire time, but it was windy that day. And I don't get it. But you know, we ended up swapping numbers, and every now and then we would text each other, but it started to get more as the season came along, and we're like, "Oh, why don't we just go hang cameras together?" And I think in June we started hanging cameras together, and you know, it was all the cell cam pictures and SD card pulls that were turning out great. And we're like, "Oh, look at this buck, look at that buck." And he had filmed a really good buck where we were hunting, and didn't get he was like full draw on the thing, and it never gave him a shot. And we ended up getting that buck back on camera and hunted him a lot last year. And so that was cool, you know. We really hit it off. And you know, at this point we've hunted together quite a few times, and he was there to help me pack out the one that I shot last year. And that was, you know, I had two buddies with me at the time, but you know, that was kind of a really cool moment where we worked really hard at finding a specific not a specific deer, but on a list of specific deer, we were able to get one of them, and we were really, really excited about that. So that was cool. So this year we kind of overdid it, and I think there's 25 cameras in that area because he really wanted to find that one buck. I think he's dead. I'm not gonna lie.
That's casting a wide net.
Yeah, we got pictures of him. I actually met somebody else randomly on public, and he sent me some pictures of, what do you think about this deer? And I was like, oh yeah, that deer. It's like, I know that deer. And it ended up being not very far from one of our spots, but it was alive after the rifle season, so I kind of assumed it would be alive this year, but we haven't had him on camera yet, so we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, you got a pretty wide net, maybe.
Yeah. Oddly enough, there are, those cameras are spread out over probably 3/4 of a mile, maybe. And oddly enough, we get almost all the same bucks on most of them.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I've never put out more than a couple cameras. I don't know. I've never done the whole, hey, let's put 10 cameras in one area, see what happens type thing,
Yeah. Honestly, I would say if you're going to do a big area, you probably don't need more than 10 to figure a deer out. We had a pretty good grasp on it last year, and I wouldn't say that adding more cameras really made a difference. Other than that, we now get a lot of pictures.
Yeah, right.
And the area is chock full of deer, so it's a lot of pictures to go through. There's a lot of does in the area because it's far in and stuff, and people aren't killing does out there. Until the gun season, they might get a group of guys that go and shoot a bunch. But so there's quite a few deer and bears and that kind of thing. So,
do you ever get a bear tag? Do you ever do that? It's a fall.
Yeah, I get a
fall thing, right?
Yeah, I get a bear tag every year. Of course, I never run into the bears when the season opens. Our bow season for bears, we have a muzzleloader season too. A flintlock season opens up next week, or on Saturday rather. So yeah, I always get a bear tag just because, the time that bear almost climbed my tree, I didn't have a bear tag. I guess it would have been bear season then. So, I don't think they had an archery bear season at that time.
Does bear season overlap or coincide with some of the archery season though? So you are able to shoot a bear with a bow during deer season?
Yeah, so our archery bear opens on Saturday, and it's open until November 15th.
Nice. And you guys aren't allowed to bait, right?
No, that's the one difficult thing about PA bears. They're pretty strict on the stuff with bears.
That's fine if that's the way they want to do it. But do they allow dogs or no? No. See, okay, yeah. So it just makes it that much tougher. So it's worth it when you hit it, right? It's that struggle. Yeah,
I shot one at a friend's at a private a couple years ago. Was my first bear I shot in the rifle season. Traditionally, our rifle season was 4 days. Like it would be the you can't hunt Sundays in PA, so it was Saturday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday before our gun season opener. And I think the bow season just started 3 years ago, so that's a new thing for PA. So that was the thing. Like everybody would go up to deer camp the week before to hunt bears and that kind of thing. So
that's pretty cool though. I wish we had bears around here to hunt. So Midwest, no bears.
Yeah,
down low,
no bears. Yeah, but it's cool. We get lots and lots of bears on camera.
No, that's awesome. So one of the things before we go here, it's been awesome talking to you. But where can people find you and find the articles you've written and all that cool stuff?
Yeah, so I've really had the great opportunity to write for Exodus Outdoor Gear. So check them out. They're everybody knows them for their trail cameras, but They have custom arrows now, so you need to check them out because they are very legit. Great. They're Exodus really prides himself in their customer service, and it goes from their trail cameras right to their arrows because they really do a great job with them. And I shot my elk with one of those arrows, and I've really had no tuning issues with them at all, and there's not a flyer arrow in a bunch of them. So
nice.
So yeah, you can find me at some blog writing at Exodus Outdoor Gear, and The Truth from the Stand. And most recently, I've been writing for Afflictor Broadheads as well.
Cool, man.
Yeah, man.
So thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for sharing tips. Definitely learned some stuff about some scrape stuff and freshening them up for sure. That's something I'm going to keep in mind when I'm looking at the weather and thinking over the next couple weeks here, especially as I really start cruising them. That's definitely an awesome tip, man. So I appreciate it, and thank you for coming on.
Thanks, man.
And once again, thank you so much for listening to the Publicly Challenged podcast. I hope you enjoyed the show, and if you did, please subscribe on whatever platform it is you're listening to. Also, if you could leave a review, that would help us out. And you can check us out on Instagram or at publiclychallenged.com. And once again, thank you so much for listening to the show.
Pursuing wild game in wild places. Tune in to Hunt Stand Presents Saturdays at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Waypoint TV, the destination for outdoor entertainment.